The world around us is rapidly evolving, and money is no exception. Central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, are part of this transformation, with China and its digital yuan, and India with its own CBDC, Brazil, the European Central Bank. Nations around the globe are piloting, implementing, researching central bank digital currencies. These are digital monies, new forms. And the question is how these different CBDCs are going to shape the future of finance, our economies, and even the geopolitics. Will they truly revolutionize cross-border transactions that have a lot of frictions? Will they challenge the dominance of traditional reserve currencies like the US dollar? These are big and interesting questions and evolving. Joining me today is Richard Turin, a leading expert in CBDCs, to shed light on the latest developments and what it means for us users, for businesses, for the global financial system, the economics, and the geopolitics. So get ready to dive into the world of CBDCs and explore these initiatives that have been recently announced, like the SWIFT Interoperability Platform, China's digital yuan trials, cross-border and other CBDC pilots, and recent news. This is part of several earlier discussions on CBDCs that you can enjoy on the CBDC playlist of Conversation and Insights. And it is with different guests that have very different views, as this is a topic that is quite polarizing. There are people that are pro-CBDC overall, and there are several that are really against central bank digital currencies. So enjoy these captivating discussions. So I'm delighted to welcome back again Richard Turin, who is the author of Cashless, China's Digital Currency Revolution. Welcome back, Richard.
Hello, Efi, and hello, everybody out there in Efi's podcast land. I am honored to be back again. Thank you for having me, Efi.
Yeah, this is a topic that is so juicy, controversial, and evolving that we could have, you and others, that I like to have people that have completely different views, and CBDCs are definitely a topic where we have, I would say, polarization, because there's a group of people that really are so much against the possibility of surveillance, increased surveillance. But what I'm interested today to discuss with you are the recent developments. And let's start with the announcement by SWIFT around a new platform that they're going to be launching, hopefully in 24 months, that, from what I understand, it's about enabling the integration or the connectivity between different CBDCs. So,
Absolutely.
can you tell us about what you understand about this SWIFT platform?
Sure. And let me just, before I jump into SWIFT, let me speak to the listeners out there, because Efi, you mentioned the polarization regarding CBDC. And I want to just take a moment. If you love CBDC, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy what we're going to talk about. If you're neutral on CBDC, meaning you're undecided one way or another, I hope you continue to keep an open mind. If you really dislike CBDC, all right, you believe that it is a surveillance coin or a means of government surveillance, Well, we disagree on that issue, but I hope that we are able to find some middle way to meet in this great discussion, because the last thing the world needs is greater polarization. We have enough of that right now. So I'll go to answer your question, Efi, and let's talk about our friends over at Swift. And Swift, our friends who are famous for cash transfer. If you make what we call commonly call a wire transfer, mostly it goes on something called the Swift network, which is a company in Luxembourg, and they provide global cash messaging services. And that's a very interesting point, because we're going to talk about Swift doesn't take your money, pick it up and send it someplace digitally or otherwise. What it does is a messaging service that sends messages from one bank to another, telling these banks in whatever country they're in to move money from one account to another. So actually, when you send, if I were to wire Efi money from where I'm sitting in Shanghai to Efi in Zurich, no money actually moves cross borders, but money crosses bank accounts. But let's leave it at that for now. What Swift has done is they're working with 38 institutional partners, and in 1 to 2 years, they are actually going to launch what is called a CBDC connector. What does this mean for people? What does this do? What does this mean? What it does is it allows me to make a CBDC payment. Now, let me go back. It is an institutional framework. So it allows a bank in China potentially to make a CBDC transfer to another bank in, let's use United Arab Emirates, two critical countries, China and an oil-producing country, UAE. I picked them for a reason that we'll talk about later. But the point is, this system will transfer CBDC. Okay. Now,
So
why
are we
is it
speaking to a messaging system? Because I would think that CBDCs are getting rid of messaging and getting rid of the need of reconciliation.
And that is the million-dollar question, and that is why people are uncomfortable a bit with the SWIFT system. I am uncomfortable, okay? So let me explain why. The SWIFT system, I give tremendous credit to the SWIFT team that put it all together. Basically, the SWIFT system mirrors how SWIFT transfers work currently using bank accounts and fiat money.
Yeah.
Now, anybody who's involved with the crypto space knows that the name of the game is tokenization, where you tokenize money. And if I send a token from me to Efi and you receive it, you've got the money, you're done.
Yeah,
The
but this is
bookkeeping
not
and the settlement.
yeah,
Right.
but you're in crypto. Let's take Bitcoin because it's easier to
Yes. The
understand. If
easiest.
I send you some Satoshis, because I would never send you one Bitcoin. Sorry, Richard.
Well, come on, Effie. I'm worth a Bitcoin easy. My conversation is worth one Bitcoin. Whoa.
By the way, I have on Twitter, this wallet capability where one could send me some Satoshi just because I guess they like my
I'll
tweets.
try. I'll go there. I'll go there.
But I've never
Tomorrow.
received. In any case, back to so if I'm sending you Satoshis, it's like actually the Satoshi moves from my wallet to your wallet. This is
Yes.
not the case with money. Money in bank accounts, money is not actually moved. It's just an accounting entry that changes, right?
Exactly.
So
And therein
yeah,
lies the biggest issue that I have with the SWIFT system. Because with the SWIFT system, and they have a good reason for doing this, they say, well, we keep the CBDC tokens in whatever jurisdiction they reside in. And we log that it comes in, and we note on the other side, in whatever country where it's going to, that there's this token with their name on it. So it's not. So what's interesting about the SWIFT system and is that it doesn't actually pass CBDC tokens between borders, which is really the gold standard and where SWIFT's competition, which is the M-Bridge system in Hong Kong, which is another mechanism, another way of transferring CBDC, is going. So look, let me cut to the chase. The SWIFT system is an advancement over the existing cash transfer system. Absolutely. It is a clear sign that CBDCs are coming. They're not a fad. They're not something that you can ignore, that it's going to go away. We need a better money transfer system than we have right now. And for now, CBDC, which is under examination or under research by some 90-something by 90+% of central banks, encompassing 98% of world GDP. So somebody somewhere is going to get them. And when we get them, they're going to use a transfer system. Now, here's the question. Nobody cares what the technology behind SWIFT's transfer system is. Ready? They care about this. SWIFT is an enforcer for US, EU, and UN sanctions.
Yeah.
And countries like China, Iran, Russia, ready? Not all enemies, Brazil,
Yeah.
and India. India and Brazil are not enemies of the free world. These nations, the BRICS countries, are all in there trying to reduce dollar use, and they don't like sanctions, and they're not going to use SWIFT. So it's really funny, and this impacted me. I honestly didn't, when I wrote about SWIFT recently, I didn't analyze the tech as much as I pointed out. It doesn't matter, because many nations putting together CBDCs are never going to use SWIFT. I don't care if it had the best technology in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's SWIFT in short. But look, let's look on the upside of this. It is a clear signal. CBDCs are coming. And if it's not something that you know about, I encourage you all to research. And even the people who don't like CBDC, perhaps if you research it, maybe you'll find some things to love there.
Yeah, yeah.
Or at least
And when we talk about CBDCs, we're mainly talking about retail CBDCs, because those are the ones that are creating this controversy. Those are the ones that really bring up privacy, surveillance issues, and sanctions and so on. Whereas
absolutely,
right, wholesale CBDCs don't have these controversial opinions. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And so what your bank uses to transfer money, nobody cares about. That's like the gears behind the machine, and it's completely irrelevant to most people. But when we talk about personal payments, what you use to pay for stuff, yeah, people have a vision, which I don't believe is accurate, that CBDCs are nothing more than a surveillance tool for government. And I don't believe that's the way that they are characterized fairly regularly. And I don't believe that characterization is accurate, given that they use many of the same technologies for privacy as cryptocurrency does. And in most cases, in the most basic way of putting it is, the government isn't going to know who's doing the spending, because the government doesn't know who is actually doing the spending. They don't know who you are when you do this. You are behind an encrypted wall. But anyway, we can always make the argument that that is never 100% effective.
Yes, and we cannot. There's a couple of things. First of all, not all CBDCs have the same designs. It depends on the devil is in the details, which are what's the role of commercial banks, where is data
Yes.
stored, all these details. I don't want to get into that
Yeah.
today. I want to, as I said in the beginning, look at recent news and discuss them with you. And another piece of important news is with the digital yuan in China that has been used for an international oil trade. And I would like to hear from you how you see the significance of this.
Yeah, it's huge. Okay. And I got another picture for that. For those who are listening in, it's a picture of RMB notes with little oil, with a dribble of oil on them and an oil rig, an oil well. And the point is, we've just seen the birth of the Petro Yuan. We always talk about the Petro dollar and in that the dollar is the primary currency for the purchase of oil products in the global oil markets. But now we're seeing the first use of the Chinese yuan, and it now can be called premature, but we can call it the Petro Yuan. And it's no surprise that China is looking to use its yuan or RMB, depending on the terminology. They mean the same thing, but China wants to use its yuan to actually purchase oil. So what they did was in the oil market in China, so this is onshore, but they just cleared the first trade for some $90 million. And they actually cleared it on the Shanghai Oil Energy Exchange, and it was actually paid for in digital yuan. And the receiver of that contract received digital yuan in China, and then they put it in their bank account and converted it to whatever they wanted to.
Is this a
So,
futures contract that was settled?
that's an interesting question. It was not I don't believe it was a futures contract. I think it was just a bulk purchase on the actual market, meaning you go there and you say, I want to buy X number of barrels or tons, and you get the spot price and you buy. I don't believe it was an actual futures contract, but I might be mistaken. But the point is, it's the first use of China's central bank digital currency to buy yuan and to buy oil. And I want to go back a slide. I want to show you this. So this is we were just talking about transfer systems for central bank digital currency. And I mentioned that there are two. The new one that's just been researched by Swift, and another one which is called M-Bridge.
Yeah.
M-Bridge. It's in Hong Kong. It's been built by the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, the People's Bank of China, the Thai Central Bank, and wait for it, the United Arab Emirates.
Okay. So
So
for
what you
for
really
for
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 yes, and there are more participants. There are now many actual more bank country participating in the program, but this transfer system two will launch this year or early next. And as you see, you've got RMB transfers directly to the UAE, which means it's just a matter of time before China buys oil with offshore RMB, meaning digital yuan that is tokenized and that goes to the United Arab Emirates via this transfer system. So this doesn't mean the death of the dollar. This doesn't mean any immediate threat. However, it does mean it's the first signaling that central bank digital currency is not just about buying coffee. It is a geopolitical force. It is going to change our world in ways that we do not fully anticipate. And immediate same transfers that happen for oil purchases within 10 minutes between sending the money in China and having it arrive in UAE, that's a game changer, and that's going to be real. And I think
Let's not
that
forget what is the metric for reserve currencies, which is really how much they are used for international trade, right? That is the measure. So here we're talking anything cross-border trade counts in international trade. So if we have regions that are not using the dollar, the euro, the yen, the British pound, then their reserve status will be reduced.
Absolutely. And I want to just make people aware of two things that are happening now. You don't see this, but this is happening now. Remember, always remember, when you see the statistics for dollar usage, you are being quoted. Usually, the statistic that you are quoted is SWIFT transfer volumes. And remember that those transfer volumes are a combination of dollars used in trade and dollars used for financial services, meaning stocks, bonds, and other investment products that are in dollars, government bonds. The portion that is financial services related is much bigger than the portion that's trade related. So, what you will always see, I warn people in it now, what you will always see is people will point to this statistic for the next 10 years and say, nothing is happening, nothing is happening. And it's true because the financial part of that trade statistic will remain very large. But what's going to happen is the dollar part in trade is going to start to shrink. And because it's a small part of the total, it will go
Unnoticed
never
for a
mind,
while.
unnoticed. It's just so small it doesn't matter. But what you will see, and what you have already seen with the sanctions in Russia, and I'm not condoning the war with, I'm not saying this is good, but I'm just saying that this is what has already happened. All of Russia has gone on to RMB, buying from China, selling oil into India, where it's taking rupee in trade, continuing its Brazil trade with real. So what you see is now trade, and these are significant amounts coming off the dollar onto other standards.
To local
And
currencies that are not even in the top reserve currency mix.
that's it. And the world keeps on spinning, and it's not ideal for these economies. Clearly, sanctions have had an impact on Russia. But
Which brings us to India. Because India, is definitely a major economy by many and rising by many metrics, right? And
yes,
they're piloting their CBDC. And the question to you is double that. It's like, is it going to the CBDC in India, for example, which, there's a lot of export and import trades there that we understand. Is it going to eliminate the settlement risk in foreign exchange, or it's got nothing to do with foreign exchange?
in as much as settlement risk is defined as the delivery. Okay, so I send money to you, but it's never delivered on your side. Okay, there's a mismatch. Somebody takes the money and somebody else doesn't get it. Okay, that's over. And as soon as we go into a digital currency realm where there's two ways to handle it, we can do actual atomic payment into somebody, where you're going to get the money, and we can actually do it via smart contract where it's delivery versus payment. In other words, the money goes in, the exchange rate is fixed. We know what the exchange rate, and you don't get it unless there's delivery. All right, so DVP is the terminology for it. So
So it's held within the smart contract and released under the conditions
So yeah, there's about a dozen ways to do it, but the basic answer to you is that most of the risk of non-payment or foreign exchange settlement risk is reduced drastically with the tokenization of money, meaning instantaneous payment, which means that, okay, it can be instantaneous and you don't live up to your side, but there's a lot of ways of working this out. So it is greatly reduced. And India is, I encourage every listener out there to do some research on India and specifically on what's called the India stack. Okay. And this is basically what is called digital public infrastructure. Now, let me help people visualize this. We're specifically regarding to payments. Anybody in the West, meaning EU, US, credit card world, views payments essentially as a paid service of their card company and their bank. In other words, when you make a payment, you pay for it. Even though you don't think about it, you think that payment is free, but of course, there are all these fees that the merchant is accepting. So India and China as well have revisualized payments as essentially a free or near free service, which is a human
social
right.
good, social good.
Social public good, social good, or what the term that they're using is digital public infrastructure. It is infrastructure run by the state for the public good to be used, and it's used by a mix of banks and normal financial institutions and the general public. And the key service is called UPI, Unified Payment Interface. Doesn't matter, but it's UPI, and it has fundamentally changed India, increasing their GDP by, if my memory is right, 1.5 or something like that percent, which is huge. Remember, countries look for 0.1%, 0.2. So if you tell me the digital services are increasing it by a full 1.5,
But it's
that's big.
also because it was an economy that was very much, there was a lot of financial inclusion upside, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Right.
Whenever you look at China, India, Southeast Asia, you're looking at large populations of unincluded, and digital public
Underbanked or unbanked.
infrastructure makes them included, which is fundamentally a big boost for them, and that's good. But still, so the point though that to be is that India believes heavily in digital public infrastructure, and they have this UPI system, and they are going the next step in building and piloting. Right now, it's being used in pilot, a central bank digital currency. And what you see is, countries like India, countries like China, Singapore, Indonesia, all of these CBDC countries and countries with big digital wallet use or mobile payment use, they're leapfrogging the West. They actually now have demonstrably superior payment systems to that which we use in the West. And I'm sorry, I have to have a funny story. I just had to pay my tax accountant in the US. All right, it's April 15th is America's famous tax
But please
deadline.
don't put the US in terms of payments in the same bucket as Europe, because it's not, right? I mean, the US
Yes.
is light years behind Europe in terms of payments.
I used the US's wonderful Zelle, Zelle system, and it couldn't actually handle the accountant's payment in one go. It has a maximum of $1,000. That's it. Now, just to compare, in WeChat in China where I live, I can do about 9,500 US equivalent on a WeChat payment. But still, what was funny is I sent one of two payments, and then I was actually taken off of Zelle, and I had to call the bank and negotiate to put myself and get my Zelle reopened so that I could make the second payment. It was a disaster. But anyway, I diverge. But UPI, India, digital public infrastructure, revisioning payment as something that is not solely at the discretion of bank charges and card charges. And that's a new world that we should all hope for.
Yeah, and then that's a huge topic. DPI, the digital, the public infrastructures that India has not only built, but is also looking to export and has MOUs with different countries. And we will be seeing these infrastructures sort of coming to the West already. If I recall correctly, they have a collaboration with France. So Indians, when they travel to France, they can use UPI and on and on. Richard,
Absolutely.
we could be talking hours. I want to
I'm
wrap
sorry.
up with the last question that is very important. It seems to me that CBDCs can only be adopted, the last mile is tied to wallets. So in my mind, whether it's CBDCs, privately issued stable coins, crypto, which are, the evolution of money, all of these, they're all tied to wallets. So wallet adoption is going to increase further than the adoption today. But I want to ask you, one, your thoughts on that, and second, what are the big card networks like Visa and MasterCard doing? Because I'm sure they're not asleep and they're sort of moving and trying to adjust to that world.
Let's take the last question for part of that question first. The big card networks should be terrified. In Brazil, they have a system called PIX, P-I-X, which was actually inspired by Brazil's UPI. And over the
India's
course
UPI.
of India's UPI. And I can't remember, I just saw the statistics, but over the past 5 or so years, for 3 years, have to be 3 years or so, the use of cards has dropped in Brazil by some 15%. And it depends. If you look at it for e-commerce, it's absolutely cratered, dropping some 20%. And if you look at it for payment overall, it's a little less. But the point is, that was the system that was most like the West in model. And once they got a free digital public infrastructure payment system, card use collapsed. And by the way, China may not have been Western-like. Maybe people think it's too foreign, but it's not. Before WeChat and Alipay came, people used bank debit cards, not credit cards, but debit cards. And that usage cratered within 2 or 3 years of the arrival of WeChat and Alipay. So credit cards should be afraid when a faster, cheaper, better, more efficient solution comes along. They're going to have to fight for it. And they will. They're huge. They're big, duopoly. They know that they've got the money on their side. They're going to fight back. But all of us are going to become far more dependent on our digital wallet. Now, let me help people visualize this, because respectfully, you can't. Because most of you visualize your digital wallet as a Google Pay wallet or an Apple Pay wallet.
Yeah.
And those are really pathetic examples of a wallet. They are
They're
really
not,
nothing
they're
more.
fake wallets.
They're
I call
fake
them fake
wallets.
wallets.
Thank
It's
you.
like fake Louis Vuitton bag, right? It's
They're
not the real
fake.
thing.
And, so you really don't have, I can't resist, you don't have this, and this is WeChat, and, it's not there for you guys. This is my phone, and this is my, this is my QR code, right? But my point is, this is a real digital wallet because I can do more than just make payment with this. I have access to goods, services, people. It's a very different system than what you envision with what you currently have in the West with Apple Pay and Google Pay. But that's changing. We are going to get wallets. Those wallets will be for what are called account-to-account payments. The example in the United States is FedNow. It's grossly inferior to the account-to-account payments, A-to-A payments that are in India or Brazil for reasons we won't go into, but you're going to get it. And, you know, the point is, we're all going to have digital wallets, and we should hope for a future where our digital wallets have stable coins in them, if we choose to have them. Central bank digital currency, if you choose to use it, and if you don't choose it, great, no problem. Or it should have perhaps Bitcoin, if that's what really makes you happy and you want to not hodl it, but actually spend it, which is rare. But, you know, you should be able to pick
And
the
let me
way
add
that
to
you
that.
want to pay.
Can I add to that? It should
Sure.
have the token assets that you have, starting with, you know, the BlackRock Bitcoin. Whatever is tokenized can be, if you choose to have it in that wallet. Any asset that you have, your
That's
ID, and any other asset, anything that is financialized. And
yes, and that's then I want to hold you on ID because the European Union is now going to launch an actual digital ID system. And I know that some people think of that as dystopian, but the US is dealing with, I think, from memory, it's $52 billion in identity fraud every year.
yep.
And the reason is because we're running a digital society with an ID system that says, here's my picture of my driver's license on it, which is totally incompatible with this new digital world. And we're all paying for it. We're all being robbed.
Yeah.
So yeah, digital ID is an integral part of all of this, all of these payment systems.
Okay, Richard, thank you so much for this wonderful update today. And we stay tuned because this is an exciting area.
Efi, I can't wait to talk to you and write with you all the time because we always write back and forth on LinkedIn. And for anybody listening, if you agree with me or if you disagree severely with me, write to me. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. You can also find, I write every day. You can find my Substack newsletter, which is weekly, but I write daily on Substack. So there's a lot of ways to reach out to me. Tell me what you think. I'd love to hear from you. And I'd love it if you'd subscribe to my Substack newsletter. That's my pride and joy.
This is the digital footprint of Richard Turin, who, according to ChatGPT, is not a descendant of Alan Turing. I asked ChatGPT, are you a descendant? Really? Let's ask Richard.
Not quite. He's got a different, his last name is Anglo. My last name is Northern Italian, so very different word, very different world, even though they sound similar. Yes.
Thank you, Richard, again.